Silence is never truly void. It is dense with revelations. And when that specific silence emanates from you, it fundamentally alters the landscape. You can disregard a man, and he might wear a smile that suggests total indifference. He might project strength, acting as though he is untouched. He may even jest, laugh, and navigate the world as if the status quo remains unshaken. But beneath the surface, a shift occurs, a fracture forms, and a voice begins to ask questions he never anticipated confronting. Today, we are dissecting the reality of what transpires when you withdraw your attention. And some of these truths will catch you off guard. The initial target that takes the impact is his ego, not his heart, nor his sentiments, but his pride. Every man, regardless of how self-assured, successful, or confident he seems, harbors a silent expectation. If he offers his presence, his protection, his focus, or his charm, he anticipates a return on that investment. He does not demand praise, nor does he require worship, but he demands acknowledgement. This is not rooted in arrogance. It is rooted in psychology. Attention serves as the signal that he matters. It validates his rank. It reassures him that he is perceived. Consequently, when you fall silent, when you retract your engagement, the very first structure that crumbles is not his affection, but his sense of self. Imagine this. He's used to you replying, used to your reactions, used to the way you notice him, respond to his words, react to his presence. He's used to being considered. Then suddenly nothing. No message, no reaction, no signal. Your silence removes the invisible mirror he's been looking into. At first, he rationalizes it. You're busy. You distract. Something came up. But that explanation doesn't last long. Because deep inside, a quieter voice starts whispering. Why hasn't she responded? Why doesn't she seem affected? Did I lose my place? That's when the ego takes the hit, and it hits harder when he realizes attention still exists elsewhere. He can still command a room. He can still be admired. But from you, the one person whose attention he expected, there's nothing. That's when it becomes personal. It stops being about attraction and becomes about self-worth. His ego tells him he should matter to you. Your silence tells him he might not. And that contradiction creates internal tension. That's why ignoring him feels so powerful. It bypasses logic and goes straight to the part of him that measures value, the part that asks, where do I stand? Now he's not relaxed anymore. He's unsettled. He replays conversations. He rereads messages. He remembers the last interaction, the last look, the last moment of certainty. He asks himself questions he doesn't want to answer. Men rarely admit when their ego is bruised. They won't say it out loud. They won't show it clearly. They'll act unaffected. They'll stay busy. They'll distract themselves. But that bruise lingers, and the more he pretends it doesn't hurt, the more it quietly grows. The first battle doesn't happen between you and him. It happens inside him. His ego versus your silence, and silence usually wins the opening round. After that, he pretends he doesn't care. This is where the mask comes on. Men are just as skilled at masking emotion as anyone else. They just do it differently. When you ignore him, he doesn't immediately confront you. He doesn't ask what went wrong. Instead, he performs indifference. He keeps moving. He acts normal, maybe even better than normal. He laughs louder. He posts more. He shows the world that nothing touched him. But look closer. That performance isn't for the world. It's for you. It's a message without words. I'm fine. I don't need you. I'm unbothered. But inside, he's checking, watching, noticing if you're watching, wondering if you'll react. Every display of confidence is slightly forced. Every moment of ease is just a little too intentional, because it's not peace, it's defense. Pretending not to care gives him a sense of control. If he shows that your silence affects him, he feels exposed, vulnerable. But if he convinces himself and you that he's untouched, it protects his pride. This is where many people make a mistake. They see the confidence, they see the activity, they assume he's moved on. So they break. They reach out, they respond. And the moment they do, the illusion works. His ego relaxes. The tension disappears. But when you don't react, when you don't feed the performance, something deeper happens. He starts realizing that the mask isn't working. He notices you're not checking in, not reacting, not chasing clarity. That's when indifference stops being an act and starts becoming uncomfortable. Because pretending not to care only works when someone is watching. When no one is watching, it collapses. That's when he begins testing, quietly, subtly, without saying what he's really asking. He won't message you directly demanding attention. That would be too revealing. Instead, he sends signals, small ones, calculated ones. A casual message that doesn't mean much on the surface. A reaction to something you posted. A neutral check-in that gives him plausible deniability. Each move is a probe, a way to measure if the door is still open. None of it is accidental. Every signal has a purpose. He's trying to see if your silence is real or temporary. If you respond quickly, if you re-engage easily, he gets his answer. The silence wasn't strength. It was hesitation. But if you don't rush, if you don't over-explain, if you don't immediately step back into the dynamic, something shifts inside him. He starts realizing that your silence isn't a tactic. It's a boundary. And boundaries unsettle people who are used to access. The more his signals go unanswered or lightly acknowledged, the more he understands that he's no longer in control of the rhythm. That realization doesn't push him away. It pulls him in mentally, because now he's not operating from comfort. He's operating from uncertainty. And uncertainty is where curiosity is born. When a man knows where he stands, he relaxes. When he doesn't, his mind starts working overtime. He begins wondering what changed, what he missed, what you saw that he didn't. He starts paying attention in ways he didn't before. Not because he suddenly feels emotional, but because his certainty is gone. This is the point where silence stops being passive and becomes active. It's no longer just absence. It's presence without explanation. And when a man can't read the situation, when he can't predict your next move, when he can't rely on access, his focus sharpens. He watches more closely. He listens more carefully. He thinks more deeply. And that's where the real shift begins. Uncertainty is uncomfortable. And when discomfort lingers, it demands resolution. This is where curiosity deepens. At first, it's light, fleeting, a passing thought during a busy day. But when days stretch on and your silence remains steady, curiosity begins to anchor itself. He starts wondering not just why you went quiet, but how you did it so easily. That question matters more than he realizes, because it suggests strength, detachment, control. His thoughts begin circling back to you without permission, not because you demanded attention, but because you removed it. Silence creates a gap, and the mind hates gaps. It wants patterns, explanations, closure. Without those, it fills the space with imagination. He replays moments, small ones he once overlooked. The tone of your voice, the way you responded when he spoke, the calm certainty you carried without needing reassurance. These memories sharpen because they're no longer reinforced by new ones. At night, when distractions fade, that curiosity grows louder. He checks his phone more often, even when he knows there's nothing there. He scrolls through conversations, not looking for answers, but for reassurance. He tells himself it doesn't matter, yet his actions betray him. Because curiosity doesn't feel like desperation. It feels like focus. And now his focus is on the one thing he can't access. This is the moment curiosity crosses into obsession. Not the dramatic kind. Not the kind that announces itself. The quiet kind. The internal pull that keeps returning. He may not talk about you much to others. In fact, he may talk less. But internally, you occupy more space than before. Obsession doesn't always look like longing. Sometimes it looks like irritation, frustration, even dismissal. He might say, "You're distant, cold, different." He might complain about how you changed. But notice this. If he truly didn't care, you wouldn't come up at all. Indifference doesn't explain. Obsession does. Because obsession needs to justify itself. It needs a story that makes the emotional investment feel reasonable. Your silence has created a vacuum, and the mind fills vacuums relentlessly. He fills it with thoughts of you, with imagined conversations, with hypothetical outcomes. He wonders what you're thinking, who you're talking to, whether you've already moved on. Each unanswered question tightens the loop because silence doesn't argue. It doesn't reassure. It just exists. This is when his behavior starts changing in subtle ways. He may show up where he didn't before. Engage indirectly. Comment casually. Like something old. Send something meaningless just to reopen a channel. These actions aren't random. They're pressure releases. Attempts to reassert presence without risking rejection. He wants proof that he still matters, but he doesn't want to ask for it directly. And if you still don't rush, if you still don't collapse the distance, the obsession deepens. Because now, it's not just about missing you. It's about losing position, losing certainty, losing the sense of being wanted without effort. That loss cuts deeper than longing. It challenges identity. And when identity is challenged, people act. This is where he tries to flip the game. When silence stops working in his favor, he attempts to mirror it. He pulls back harder. He goes quieter. He acts more distant than before. On the surface, it looks like detachment, like he's finally let go. But look closer. This isn't peace. It's retaliation. A last attempt to regain control by forcing you to react. He might suddenly display attention elsewhere, post more, appear busy, appear unavailable. Not because he is, but because he wants to be seen as such. The goal isn't connection. It's reaction. He's hoping jealousy, curiosity, or doubt will pull you back in. That you'll question yourself. That you'll break first. Most people do. Silence is uncomfortable for both sides. And when someone mirrors your distance, it can feel like confirmation of loss. That's when fear creeps in. Fear of missing out. Fear of finality. Fear of being replaced. And fear makes people abandon their boundaries. But if you don't flinch, something critical happens. He realizes the game isn't working, that you're not competing, not proving, not reacting. And that realization hits hard, because it exposes a truth he can't avoid. You're not acting. You're not strategizing. You're simply choosing not to engage. That choice carries weight. It signals self-respect, emotional discipline, independence, traits that can't be faked for long. And once he sees that, his perception shifts. You're no longer someone he can predict or manage or access on demand. You become someone with standards. Scarcity forms naturally here, not forced scarcity. Real scarcity. Your attention is no longer guaranteed. And when something isn't guaranteed, its value rises. Not because it's rare in the world, but because it's rare to him. He begins associating your presence with significance, with calm, with stability, with something he didn't fully appreciate until it was gone. This is where respect starts to grow. Respect doesn't come from compliance. It comes from boundaries held under pressure. He notices that you didn't beg, didn't explain, didn't chase. You didn't punish either. You simply withdrew your energy without drama. That quiet strength lingers in his mind. He starts remembering you differently now. Not as someone available, but as someone intentional. Not as someone reactive, but as someone grounded. And that changes how he approaches you, even in his thoughts. He becomes more careful, more aware, less casual. Because he senses that access now requires effort. This is the turning point. Because when respect enters the picture, everything changes. Attraction without respect fades, but attraction with respect deepens. It creates intention. It creates pursuit. It creates accountability. And whether he acts on it or not depends on who he really is. Some will step forward with clarity, with honesty, with genuine effort. Others won't. They'll retreat, not because they don't feel it, but because they can't rise to it. And both outcomes matter, because silence doesn't manipulate. It reveals. It shows you whether someone values connection or just comfort, whether they want depth or just validation, whether they're capable of meeting you where you stand or only where it's easy. And as this stage settles, one truth becomes clear. You didn't lose power by going quiet. You reclaimed it. And whatever comes next will be shaped by that decision. When respect takes root, the dynamic is no longer the same. The balance shifts quietly, almost imperceptibly, but its effects are undeniable. He doesn't feel relaxed anymore. He feels measured. Every interaction, even imagined ones, carries weight now. Where there was once ease and assumption, there is caution and intention. Your silence has done something words never could. It forced him to confront the possibility of losing access for real. This is where his behavior begins to slow down. Not in avoidance, but in awareness. He chooses words more carefully in his mind before ever sending them. He imagines how you might respond, or whether you'll respond at all. That uncertainty keeps him alert, and alertness breeds value, because we protect what we believe matters. He may start replaying not just moments, but patterns. He notices how you were consistent without being needy, present without being demanding, strong without being loud. These realizations don't hit all at once. They drip in slowly, often when he least expects them. During quiet moments, during pauses, during times when distraction fails. This is also where guilt can surface. Not dramatic guilt, but reflective guilt. He thinks about where he took you for granted, where he assumed you'd stay, where he didn't show up fully because he didn't think he had to. Silence creates space for accountability. And accountability is uncomfortable. It removes the shield of distraction. It leaves a man alone with his choices. And when that accountability sits long enough, it demands action. But action doesn't always come in the form of a direct apology or confession. Sometimes it comes as restraint. He stops playing games, stops testing, stops trying to provoke reactions, because he senses that those strategies no longer work. They belong to a version of you that no longer exists in his mind. Instead, he starts considering a different approach, one that matches your calm, your distance, your strength. He thinks about reaching out in a way that actually means something. Not a casual message, not a bait, but something intentional, something honest. And the reason this thought matters is because it represents a shift from control to connection. At the same time, something else is happening inside him. Fear. Not fear of rejection, but fear of exposure. Because reaching out sincerely requires vulnerability. It means admitting that your absence affected him, that your silence mattered, that you weren't replaceable. And for many men, that admission feels like risk. So he hesitates. He weighs his options. He imagines outcomes. He considers pride versus truth. And this internal conflict can last longer than you expect. Silence doesn't rush decision. It lets them mature. And the longer he sits with it, the clearer his intentions become, even to himself. This is why patience matters here. Because if you break your silence too early, you interrupt this process. You give relief before resolution. You offer comfort before clarity. And while that may feel good in the moment, it robs both of you of truth. As time passes, one of two things happens. He either steps forward with effort, or he steps back completely. If he steps forward, you'll feel the difference immediately. The tone changes. The energy shifts. There's purpose behind his words. He doesn't ask for attention. He offers presence. He doesn't test the water. He acknowledges the distance. Not always directly, but with accountability, with consistency, with intention. This is where you decide. Not from emotion, but from observation. You watch what he does, not what he says. You notice whether his effort sustains itself, whether his respect remains when comfort returns. Silence may have opened the door, but discernment decides whether it stays open. If he steps back completely, that's information too. Painful, perhaps, but honest. Because it means he valued access more than connection, comfort more than depth. And while that realization can sting, it also liberates. It saves you from investing in someone who only shows up when it's easy. Either outcome is clarity, and clarity is power. This is the final transformation silence creates. It removes illusion. It strips away fantasy. It reveals who someone is when they're no longer in control. When they can't rely on your availability. When they have to choose between ego and effort. Silence doesn't demand answers. It allows them to surface. And as this process unfolds, something changes in you as well. You become steadier, less reactive, more grounded. You realize that your value isn't measured by response time or availability. It's measured by how you choose to engage or not engage. You stop fearing distance because you understand its purpose. Distance isn't loss. It's a filter. It screens out those who can't meet you where you stand, and it amplifies those who can. By now, the dynamic has fully shifted. Whether he returns or disappears, you are no longer waiting. You are no longer chasing. You are no longer wondering what your silence means. You know it means you respected yourself enough to step back, enough to observe, enough to let someone reveal themselves without interference. And that self-respect becomes the foundation for every connection that follows. Because when someone enters your life now, they don't meet desperation. They meet calm. They meet boundaries. They meet someone who knows that attention is valuable and presence is earned. This is the hidden power of silence. Not manipulation, not punishment, but discernment. It clarifies without cruelty. It reveals without confrontation. It teaches without lectures. And when you carry that energy forward, you stop trying to hold on to people who don't choose you fully. You let them decide. You let them act. You let them show you who they are. That's not weakness. That's strength refined. And as the final moments of this silence settle, one truth remains undeniable. Whatever happens next, you didn't lose yourself trying to keep someone. You found yourself by letting go. That's where real power lives. What happens next is quieter but deeper. The noise is gone now. No games, no testing, no emotional spikes. Just truth sitting in the open. This is the phase most people never talk about because it's not dramatic, but it's the most revealing. At this point, his reaction no longer defines the situation. Yours does. You've already done the hardest part. You didn't chase clarity. You didn't beg for reassurance. You didn't collapse under uncertainty. You let silence do its work. And in doing so, something inside you shifted permanently. You stopped seeing attention as proof of worth and started seeing it as a choice, a privilege, something you give, not something you need. That internal shift changes everything. Now, if he reaches out, you don't feel relief. You feel assessment. You're no longer asking, does he want me? You're asking, does this align with what I allow? That's a subtle but powerful difference. Because desire without discernment keeps people stuck, but desire with discernment creates stability. If he returns with words but no substance, you notice. If he shows interest but avoids accountability, you see it. If he wants access without effort, you feel the imbalance immediately. Silence sharpened your awareness. You're no longer emotionally foggy, you're clear. And if he doesn't return, something equally important happens. You stop without constant interaction to feed fantasy. You see the connection for what it truly was, not what it could have been, not what you hoped it would become, but what it actually offered. That clarity doesn't feel like loss. It feels like grounding. This is where many people misunderstand silence. They think it's about getting someone back, but silence isn't a tool for control. It's a tool for truth. Sometimes the truth brings someone closer. Sometimes it sends them away. And both outcomes are correct. Because what you're really filtering for isn't attention. It's alignment. At this stage, he might still think about you often. Silence doesn't erase impact, but thinking doesn't equal action. And action is the only thing that matters now. You're no longer moved by potential. You're moved by consistency. That's why when he does reach out, genuinely, it feels different. There's no confusion, no mixed signals, no half steps. His energy matches his words. His presence feels intentional. And most importantly, you don't feel the urge to overgive. You respond from choice, not fear. And if he doesn't reach out, life still moves forward. Not in bitterness, not in resentment, but in self-respect. You don't close your heart. You refine it. You carry forward the lesson without carrying the weight. Silence teaches restraint, and restraint builds confidence. Not loud confidence, quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that doesn't need validation to survive. This is where your standards solidify. You stop explaining them. You stop defending them. You simply live by them. And people feel that. They sense it because energy always speaks before words do. The next person who enters your life doesn't meet someone eager to prove value. They meet someone steady. Someone who doesn't rush connection. Someone who observes before investing. And that alone changes how people show up around you. This is the long-term effect of silence. It recalibrates your nervous system. You stop associating love with anxiety, attention with security. You realize that the right connection doesn't require emotional strain to maintain. And if you ever need to use silence again, you won't use it as a tactic. You'll use it naturally, because you'll know when to step back, when to disengage, when to protect your energy without explanation. That's maturity. He may eventually understand what happened. He may look back and realize that your silence wasn't cold. It was clean. It wasn't punishment. It was self-respect. Because not everyone is meant to walk with you. Some are meant to wake you up, to challenge you, to teach you what you will and won't accept. Silence makes those lessons unavoidable. And now you stand in a different place, not waiting, not chasing, not hoping someone sees your worth. You know it, and now we arrive at the final truth silence reveals. Not about him, about you. Because by this point, something irreversible has happened inside you. You no longer feel the urge to explain yourself. You no longer feel the pull to correct misunderstandings that aren't yours to fix. You no longer feel responsible for managing another man's emotions. That alone, it rewired the way you relate to yourself. You begin to understand that attention given too freely loses meaning. That access without effort creates entitlement. That presence without appreciation slowly drains your energy. And once this realization settles in, it doesn't leave. You stop negotiating your worth through over-availability. You stop proving value through endurance. You stop hoping consistency will be noticed if you just give a little more. You realize something most people never fully grasp. Connection should feel mutual, not managed. Chosen, not chased. Balanced, not burdensome. At this stage, even if he comes back, you are no longer the same person he left. His presence doesn't anchor you anymore. His absence doesn't destabilize you. You're no longer emotionally dependent on outcome. And that neutrality is powerful, because neutrality isn't indifference. It's emotional balance. It's the space between desire and desperation. If he reaches out with sincerity, you feel it immediately. There's no confusion, no mixed signals, no vague energy. His words carry intention. His actions carry weight. And even then, you don't rush. You don't fall back into old patterns just because familiarity feels comfortable. You let things unfold slowly, deliberately. You allow consistency to prove itself over time. Because silence taught you that real effort doesn't need urgency to exist. And if he doesn't come back, something equally important happens. You don't spiral. You don't rewrite history to soften the truth. You don't chase closure disguised as conversation. You accept what is, not because it's easy, but because it's honest. You understand that not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. Some are meant to wake you up. Some are meant to expose where your boundaries were too flexible. This acceptance doesn't feel like numbness. It feels like grounding, like standing firmly on your own feet without leaning on hope. You stop asking why he couldn't meet you where you stood. You start asking why you tolerated being halfway met for so long. And that question doesn't come with shame. It comes with clarity. Because growth isn't about blaming the past. It's about learning from it without dragging it forward. Silence teaches you how to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. How to observe emotions without being ruled by them. How to let people show you who they are without interrupting the process. And once you master that, relationships stop feeling chaotic. They stop feeling confusing. They become clear. You begin to notice how differently men respond to you now. Some lean in with intention. Some fall away quietly. Some test your boundaries. Some respect them immediately. And you don't chase any of it because you're no longer trying to be chosen. You are choosing. That is the real power shift. Before, silence felt risky, like something you used only when you were pushed to the edge. Now silence feels natural, like a pause. You trust a space you don't rush to fill. You understand that not every message needs a response. Not every feeling needs to be explained. Not every connection needs to be preserved. This doesn't make you cold. It makes you intentional. You become someone who listens more than reacts. Someone who notices patterns instead of accepting excuses. Someone who values peace over emotional intensity. And that calm presence becomes your signature. People feel it when they're around you. They sense that you're not easily shaken, not easily provoked, not easily pulled into chaos. That's when relationships start changing at their core. The quality improves, the dynamics simplify. You attract men who are clear, grounded, and emotionally responsible. Not because you demand it, but because that's what aligns with who you've become. And when someone tries to disrupt that balance, you don't argue. You don't defend. You don't explain yourself into exhaustion. You simply disengage quietly, cleanly, without drama. Because silence has taught you that walking away doesn't need an announcement. This is the final lesson silence offers. It isn't about making a man miss you. It's about making sure you never abandon yourself. It's about refusing to beg for presence, effort, or clarity. It's about knowing that the right connection won't require you to disappear in order to be valued. When a man truly values you, you don't have to withdraw to be seen. When he respects you, silence becomes a choice, not a weapon. So, Regardless of whether he returned or stayed away, the final result remains identical. You emerge victorious, not because you manipulated the circumstances, but because you mastered your own reactions. You safeguarded your energy reserves. You held your boundaries sacred. You selected self-respect over the fleeting comfort of reassurance. And that is, without question, the most scarce skill in existence. Silence did not diminish your stature. It rendered you lucid, potent, and totally aligned. It peeled back the layers of illusion and substituted them with raw truth. And the truth, even when it stings, invariably paves the path to freedom. You now comprehend that your focus is a currency. Your presence carries immense weight. Your energy is a limited resource. You no longer distribute it freely just to simulate a connection. You offer it only to those who perceive its worth, without requiring the harsh lesson of loss first. Silence is not a void. It is the height of discernment. It is wisdom stripped of the noise. It is power that requires no performance. And when wielded with dignity, it does not merely alter how a man approaches you. It revolutionizes how you exist, how you decide, and how you navigate this reality. Remain calm, remain anchored, and never lose sight of this fact. The most thunderous statement you will ever deliver is knowing exactly when to hold your tongue.